Welcome back. A few weeks ago, I interviewed Martin Karp here on Facing. He is a former Miami-Dade school board member who is running to get back on the board. It was a rather contentious interview as Karp refused to answer some straightforward questions about his positions and his previous time on the board.
The body doesn't match the action. You have to have all three match because you vote on the action that's proposed. No, I would not vote against it or for it. I would vote to have the item. No, Jim, let me explain.
No, I got to move on.
No, I have to explain that. The action has to match it.
Yeah, that was special. Today, we are joined by his opponent in the race for School Board District 3, which covers Northeast Dade all the way down to Coconut Grove, former State Representative Joe Geller. Joe, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
So, I want to sort of go through a number of things with you, but I want to start with what that exchange that I was having with Martin Karp at the time was over whether or not the school board should recognize Gay Pride Month, whether or not they should celebrate that throughout the district. There was a measure that was going to be appearing on the school board just a couple days later, and I couldn't really get a clear answer as to how he was going to vote. How would you have voted on that measure?
I would have voted yes on it, and in fact, I went down to the school board for the second year in a row and spoke in favor of it. I think it's important. That's about teaching history, and we should be teaching accurate history and not this extremist agenda that says we should teach fake history. As a former history major, I find it very disturbing.
All right, now let's take a step back for a second. Why are you running? Why are you doing this?
Well, first of all, because my only child is 17, and she's a senior in high school, and right now the school, for the last number of years, the school district seems pretty important to me. And I also don't like the direction that they've been moving. Again, they're trying to put in this extremist agenda. They're banning books. I mean, I never thought I'd see that. Florida's #1 in banning books. They say, oh, we're not banning them. We're just taking them off the shelves and putting them someplace where the kids can't get them. Well, to me, that's the same thing. We shouldn't be banning books. We shouldn't be victimizing vulnerable populations of kids. We should be protecting those kids, and we should teach real history, and we need to keep this right-wing extremist politics out of our school board. We never had that.
So what Governor DeSantis and the Republicans in the legislature would say is the reason they passed some of these laws is because they want to give parents more say in the education process. They want to have parents be able to object to certain books that they think may be in the library and have them pulled while they're reviewed. What's wrong with having more parental involvement on that level in education?
Look, I fought some of these things as a member of the legislature as they were coming along. I served on the Education Committee. I was the ranking member on the K-12 subcommittee. But I fought these things up there. They're wrong. I'm for parental involvement. But my wife put it very well when she said, it's okay for somebody else if they want to have theirs, but what about our rights as parents? One parent shouldn't be able to dictate to the entire class of parents and all of the students. You have to balance those rights so that everybody can be heard, not just the loudest voice.
All right. What are some of the issues in education that you want to sort of address? And I want to say, and I guess maybe the first thing I want you to address is Martin Karp is a former teacher. He spent a long time in the school district. He was a former school board member. So why do you believe you're better suited than someone who actually worked as a teacher and served previously on the school board? What makes you in a better position?
A couple of things, Jim. First of all, as you pointed out in your interview, there was an issue with Martin's previous service. I'm not going to get into the details, but there's an Inspector General's report. You put it online. I urge people to read it that found that he and his office exposed kids to an unsafe condition. Happens that my own daughter was at the school, that one of the two schools that was involved in that. So that's number one. Number two, I served on the Education Committee, as I said, and was ranking member on K-12 subcommittee. Also, all these funding issues that we're facing came through the legislature, and we need to have people on the school board that can help push back against this and get the money that we need. Our particular Dade County is victimized by things like the district cost differential that I worked with for years there, the FEFP, the funding program, but also because when you look at who is supporting us who's supporting him and who's supporting me as the Democrat in this race, and Marty switched and became a different party, I don't think he's in sync with what the parents, the students, and for that matter, the teachers for this district want. He's out of step. It's an extremist agenda, and we need to get this extremist politics out of our school district and go back to teaching kids and protecting them.
Now, technically, this is a nonpartisan race. You don't have an R or a D next to your name. He doesn't have an R next to his name. You know, that's true.
Yes.
But you believe that this is a fight that should be waged on a partisan level?
You know, I think that's not the only issue, but I don't think people should be blind to that. Okay, when you look at who supports people, when you look at where they're likely to vote, particularly if you can't get a straight answer out of somebody, you have to know what they're likely to do. I'll say flat out, look, if the people in this district don't agree with the positions I have, they should vote for someone else. That's democracy. I'm okay with that, but I intend to tell people clearly and accurately what I stand for without equivocation, and if that's what they want, they should vote for me. If they want an end to this injection of extremist politics in our school board, they should vote for me. And yes, I'm a Democrat, a lifelong Democrat. I haven't switched. I don't like what I'm seeing coming from the other side, and I make no bones about it.
So you've used the word extremist a number of times, but yet Miami-Dade School District is considered an A district, does very well. So maybe the recipe that you're seeing from the school board, which you're absolutely right, does have several conservatives on it, some liberals and independents. You know, maybe that's not such a bad thing what's happening right now in the school board.
We have an A-performing district. Look, frankly, I was never a big fan of those rankings of districts anyway. It's great to say that across the district we have teachers that are dedicated, who are doing a great job. We have parents that are nurturing their children, and we have great kids. But the fact of the matter is, the fact that the district is A doesn't mean there aren't problems and there aren't kids who are being left behind. But I still firmly believe that banning books is always going to be wrong, and teaching fake history is always going to be wrong, and targeting kids instead of making them feel loved and inclusive and protected is always going to be wrong. I'm glad we're doing well, but we can do better.
So what areas would you want to improve on?
Well, I'll start with those. I'll start with keeping politics out. I'll also start with the fact that when you look at it, we're spending an awful lot of money, which I'm glad of. I mean, we need to target. We are 50th in this state, is my understanding, in teacher pay. We need to raise teacher pay. We need to devote more money to mental health resources. Maybe we can find some way to, you know, not have quite as many, I don't want to use the word, let's just say high-level, high-paid staff in the district. We need to put some of that money towards protecting kids. You know, we should have a nurse or a paramedic at every school. I was an early supporter of school resource officers before Parkland happened.
Well, let me jump in and ask you, Broward County has started a program of putting metal detectors in schools. Miami-Dade County has chosen not to do so. They don't believe that it's effective. Do you have an opinion as to whether or not schools should have metal detectors, particularly the high schools?
I'm an opinionated guy, Jim. I don't think we need metal detectors in Dade County. I don't criticize Broward. They have different circumstances, and I recognize that. I do think it's important that we narrow access to schools, but if you're going to have one place where all the kids get in, and they've all got to go through a metal detector, and they've all got to be searched, you're going to take tremendous time away from the instructional day because you're going to have huge backlogs. I support armed school police. We're unique because we have our own police force. We also have security guards that also work for the school system. So, as I said, I was an early supporter. In fact, they adopted my plan when didn't say, oh, that was what Joe Geller had introduced. But that's fine. It got done. Doesn't matter who got the credit. So I think that it's important that we keep kids safe. That's a priority. I don't think we need metal detectors here in Dade County.
Joe, let me ask you this. I mean, you're coming in basically saying that the school district is overly politicized, that we have an extremist agenda on certain members of the school board. I'm curious, how will you be able to work with them? If you get on the board and you have 3 or 4 members, some of whom are DeSantis appointees, some of whom who are running on a conservative agenda, how are you going to end up being effective in working with them?
Well, there's 2 answers to that. Right now, it's a 5-4 conservative majority. Okay, and if this seat were to flip, it would be even more in that direction. I don't think that this seat's going to flip. I'm hopeful that I can hold it. But on top of that, my reputation in Tallahassee was someone who never attacked people based on who they were. Never called people stupid, crooked, or traitors. I talked about issues. I always tried to address them in an intellectual and good way. And I'm confident that I can work with anybody on that board for the good of our kids.
I got to jump in, and that's our time. Joe Gellar, thank you very much for coming in. We'll be right back after the break.